The year is 447 AD. The Roman Empire, master of Europe for 6 centuries, has just agreed to pay 6,000 pounds of gold up front to a single man. That's not a loan, that's not trade, that's protection money. And the annual tribute, 2,200 pounds. Every year, or he comes back. His name is Attila. He commands no cities, he mints no coins, he builds no roads, and yet, he just made Rome beg. Here's what's impossible. Rome has survived Hannibal, civil wars, Germanic invasions, plague. It has 100 years of infrastructure, millions of subjects, and the greatest military legacy in human history. One nomadic warlord, in less than 2 decades, will make that border meaningless, that treasury empty, and that empire turn on itself. Because Attila didn't conquer Rome. He didn't have to. He forced Rome into a position where it would devour its own generals, assassinate its own emperor, and collapse from the inside. Final hook image. Attila's face, then Roman eagle falling. This is the story of how the end of Rome began, not with a siege, but with a bill. The frontier becomes a price tag. How much is Rome worth? 434 AD, Hun territory. North of the Danube, rewind 13 years. 2 brothers rule the Huns, Bleda and Attila. They've just inherited the largest nomadic confederation Europe has ever seen. Tens of thousands of warriors. A cavalry force that moves faster than any Roman legion can respond. And Rome knows it. The Eastern Roman Empire sends diplomats, not to fight, to negotiate. The result? The Treaty of Margus, 434 AD. Here's what Rome agrees to: 700 pounds of gold, every single year. They'll return all Hun refugees. They'll stop trading with any tribe hostile to the Huns. They'll give Attila's people exclusive trading rights at designated border markets. Think about that. This isn't a peace treaty. This is a subscription service. Rome is paying for the privilege of not being invaded. Roman treasury. Gold being counted. The historian Priscus will later visit Attila's court as part of a Roman embassy. He'll describe something that should disturb you. The Romans are terrified, not of barbarian savagery, of barbarian sophistication. Attila runs a court. He has diplomats, he has leverage, and he knows exactly how much Rome can afford to lose. Stay with me, because this is just the opening bid. The Balkan catastrophe. 441 AD, the Balkans, cities burning. 7 years into the treaty, Attila decides it's not enough. He has a pretext. Rome allegedly violated some terms. But the truth? He smells weakness. The Eastern Empire has troops tied up fighting Persia. The Danube frontier is exposed. So he crosses. What follows is systematic destruction. Viminacium, Singidunum, Nessus, the birthplace of Constantine himself. City after city falls. The Huns don't occupy, they don't govern. They gut, they loot, they leave, red spreading across the Balkans. By 443, the Eastern Empire is bleeding. They sue for peace. Again. New terms, the annual tribute, triples, 2,100 pounds of gold per year, plus 6,000 pounds in back payments for the years Attila claims Rome underpaid. Watch what happens next. Rome doesn't rebuild its legions. It doesn't fortify the frontier. It pays. Because paying is cheaper than fighting, in the short term. Here's where it gets strange. The Western Roman Empire, the other half of this crumbling giant, is watching all of this. And they're learning exactly the wrong lesson. They see that gold buys survival. They don't see that gold buys dependency. The border isn't a wall anymore. It's a negotiating table, and Attila holds all the cards. The 447 breaking point. Earthquake and empire. Constantinople, 447 AD. The ground is shaking. January 27th. An earthquake hits the eastern capital. 57 towers of the Theodosian walls collapse. Entire sections crumble. The greatest fortification in the world, reduced to rubble in minutes. Walls cracking, dust rising, citizens fleeing. Constantinople is exposed. And everyone knows it. Rumors spread. Plague is moving through the region. The emperor is paralyzed with indecision. And somewhere north of the Danube, Attila hears the news. He moves immediately. Hun army massing. The Eastern Empire scrambles to respond. They send their field armies to intercept. The Battle of the Utus River. This is supposed to be the stand. It's a massacre. Roman lines breaking, cavalry encircling. The Roman commander Arnagisclus dies on the field. The Eastern Field Army, the professional core of Roman military power, is shattered. There is nothing between Attila and Constantinople except broken walls and desperate prayers. Now put yourself in the imperial palace. Your walls are down. Your army is destroyed. The most dangerous man in the world is riding toward your capital. What do? You pay. Roman envoys carrying gold. The math of humiliation, 6,000 pounds of gold immediately, plus the annual tribute increases to 2,100 pounds. Plus Rome surrenders a strip of territory south of the Danube, a 5-day journey deep, a buffer zone. For Attila. What this actually means. Here's the thesis of this entire story. Remember it. The Roman frontier is no longer a defensive line. It's a payment plan. Map showing the buffer zone, Roman territory simply given away. The Eastern Empire has just bought survival. They'll spend the next few years melting down statues, taxing citizens into poverty, and stripping aristocrats of their wealth, all to meet the tribute demands. And the West? The Western Roman Empire watches this and thinks, we can do the same thing. We can buy our way out. They can't, because they don't have Constantinople's walls. They don't have the Eastern treasury, and they're about to learn that Attila's price only goes up. But here's the thing. The West still believes it can fight. They have one general, one man who understands barbarian warfare, one last shield. His name is Flavius Aetius. Remember that name. Map shifts west. Because Attila is about to turn his attention toward Gaul, and everything Rome has left will depend on a single battle fought by soldiers who aren't even Roman. The Honoria episode 450 AD, Ravenna, the Western Imperial Palace. Here's where it gets strange. A woman is about to hand Attila the excuse he needs to invade the West. Her name is Honoria. She's the sister of Emperor Valentinian III. And she's just made the most dangerous decision of the 5th century. A ring being placed in a messenger's hand, Honoria is trapped. Caught in an affair with her estate manager, she's been confined to a convent, betrothed against her will to a boring senator she despises. She wants out. So she sends a message. To Attila. The message includes her ring, a proposal, a plea for rescue. Attila receives it, and he sees exactly what it is, a legal claim. Attila's court, advisors gathered. Watch what he does. He doesn't laugh it off. He doesn't ignore it. He sends envoys to Ravenna with a formal demand. Honoria is his betrothed. He wants her delivered, along with her dowry. Her dowry, half the Western Empire. Visual, map of Western Empire, half highlighted. The Western court panics. Valentinian sends back a furious refusal. Honoria is not available. The proposal means nothing. There will be no marriage, no territory, no negotiation. Attila doesn't care about the answer. He never expected them to agree. He wanted the pretext. Think about that. A single letter from a desperate princess just gave Attila legal justification, in his own framework, to claim half of Rome. He can now frame any invasion as collecting what he's owed. And he's about to collect. Gaul, the coalition battle 451 AD. Gaul, the Rhine crossing. Spring. Attila moves west with the largest army he's ever assembled. Estimates vary. 50,000, maybe more. Huns, Ostrogoths, Gepids, and a dozen other subject peoples. A confederation of destruction. Visual. Endless columns crossing into Gaul, cities, burning on the horizon. They burn through northern Gaul. Metz falls, Reims falls, city after city. Attila is heading for Orléans, the gateway to the rich south. Red arrows sweeping across Gaul. Here's the problem for Rome. The Western Empire doesn't have an army that can stop this, not alone. Enter Aetius. Aetius, riding hard. Flavius. Aetius understands something the emperors don't. Rome can't win this war with Romans. There aren't enough of them. The legions are hollowed out, filled with barbarian recruits, spread across a frontier that's collapsing everywhere at once. So Aetius does something desperate. He builds a coalition. Visigothic warriors, Alan cavalry, Burgundian infantry. He rides to Toulouse. He convinces Theodoric, king of the Visigoths, to join him. The Visigoths hate the Huns. They remember being driven from their homeland by these same nomads 2 generations ago. Theodoric agrees. Aetius gathers the Alans. He brings in Burgundians, Franks, a patchwork army of former enemies united by a single fear, Attila. Stay with me, because what happens next will decide whether Rome survives another decade. June 451. Audi, the Catalonian plains. Attila reaches Orléans. The siege begins, but Aetius arrives faster than expected. Attila pulls back, looking for better ground. They meet somewhere in Champagne, the Catalonian plains. Some sources call it the Battle of Chalons. The exact location is lost. What matters is the scale. 2 massive armies facing each other across open ground. This is it, the largest battle of the 5th century, maybe one of the largest in ancient history. Hun against Goth, nomad against Roman, 2 worlds colliding. The fighting lasts until nightfall. It's chaos, cavalry charges, shield walls breaking. Theodoric, the Visigothic king, is killed in the melee, trampled by his own men in the confusion. But his son Thorismund rallies the Visigoths. They don't break, they hold. By morning, Attila is still on the field, but he's not advancing. He's fortifying his camp. He orders wagons circled, a pyre built in the center. If they breach his defenses, he'll burn himself alive rather than be captured. Attila standing before a massive pile of saddles. Torch ready. Think about that. Attila, the scourge of God, is preparing for death. That's how close it was. But here's where it gets complicated. Aetius, meeting with Thorismund. Aetius doesn't finish him. He convinces Thorismund to leave. Go home, he says. Secure your throne before your brothers take it. The Visigoths ride south. The coalition dissolves. Attila retreats east, wounded but alive. Was this a Roman victory? Technically. The invasion of Gaul stopped. Orléans saved. But look at what actually happened. A Roman victory fought by non-Romans. Visigoths did the dying. Aetius did the diplomacy. The Western Empire provided the banner, and not much else. Here's the thesis, again. Rome survives by borrowing strength. But borrowed strength has a price. And, eventually, the lenders want payment. Aetius has just saved Gaul. Remember that, because in 3 years his own emperor will murder him for it. Italy and the myth. Aquileia falls. 452 AD, the Julian Alps. Attila is back. 1 year later, Attila hasn't forgotten. He's just changed targets. Gaul was defended. Italy is not. Hun army descending through Alpine passes. He crosses into northern Italy and heads straight for Aquileia, one of the richest cities in the Western Empire. A major port, a trading hub, a symbol. Aquileia's walls, the siege drags on. Weeks. Attila's men are restless. Some say he considered withdrawing. Then he sees it. A stork, flying from a tower with its young, abandoning the city. Single bird rising from the walls, Attila takes it as an omen. He orders a final assault. Aquileia falls. And when it does, Attila doesn't just loot it. He erases it. The city is burned so completely that later generations struggle to find where it stood. Refugees flood south. Some, settling in lagoons, building on islands, founding what will eventually become Venice. Refugees in boats, moving through marshland, Attila sweeps through the Po Valley. Milan falls, Pavia falls. Northern Italy is being gutted. Rome itself is 300 miles away, undefended. The emperor has fled to Ravenna. There is no army between Attila and the Eternal City. Watch what happens next, because this is where history becomes legend. The Pope stopped Attila, summer 452 AD, somewhere near the Mincio River, northern Italy. Attila is camped with his army. Rome is undefended. The road south is open. And then, a delegation arrives. Small group of robed figures approaching the Hun camp. Leading them is Pope Leo I. No army, no weapons, just words. The meeting happens. What's said, no one knows for certain. But when it ends, Attila turns around. He withdraws from Italy. He never returns. For 1,500 years, this moment has been painted, celebrated, mythologized. Leo the Great, the holy man who stopped the barbarian with divine authority. God's representative facing down the scourge of God. Famous painting of Leo confronting Attila, angels in the sky. It's a beautiful story. Here's what actually happened. Attila's army is starving. Northern Italy has been stripped bare, not by Huns, but by years of warfare and mismanagement. There's no food to requisition. His supply lines stretch back across the Alps. Disease is spreading through the camp. Maybe malaria, maybe dysentery. His men are dying without a Roman sword touching them. Sick soldiers, horses collapsing. And there's more. The Eastern Empire, seeing Attila distracted in Italy, has sent forces across the Danube. They're raiding Hun homeland territories, burning camps, threatening families. Attila doesn't turn back because of a pope. He turns back because continuing means losing everything. Leo's embassy gave him something valuable, a dignified exit. A story that made withdrawal look like negotiation, not retreat. Both sides got what they needed. But here's the thesis, one more time. Rome didn't win Italy. Attila hit the limits of campaigning. The empire survived because its enemy overextended, not because it found the strength to resist. That's the truth. The legends don't tell you. The real end begins. Attila dies 453 AD Hun territory, a wedding feast. 1 year later, Attila takes another bride, a young woman named Ildiko. The celebration lasts all night. Torchlit feast, drinking, celebration. The next morning, Attila doesn't emerge. His guards break down the door. They find him dead, face up in a pool of blood. Ildiko weeping in the corner. The official story, a hemorrhage. Years of heavy drinking had weakened his blood vessels. He bled out through his nose while unconscious, too drunk to wake and save himself. Some whisper murder, Ildiko, Roman agents, a jealous rival. The truth dies with him. Funeral procession, Huns riding in circles around the body, slashing their faces with knives. His warriors bury him in secret. Tradition says they diverted a river, buried him in the riverbed with his treasures, then released the waters. The slaves who dug the grave were killed. The location was never found. And with him, the Hun Empire shatters, Hun territory fragmenting into pieces. His sons fight each other, subject peoples revolt. Within a generation, the Huns dissolve from a continental threat into scattered tribes. They'll never threaten Rome again. But it's too late, because the damage isn't on the frontier anymore. It's inside the palace. Chapter 10. Rome murders its shield, 454 AD, Ravenna, the imperial palace. Aetius has done the impossible. He held Gaul. He stopped Attila. He's the last Roman general who understands how to fight, and more importantly, how to negotiate with the barbarian powers. Emperor Valentinian III knows all of this, and he's terrified. Valentinian watching Aetius from across a room, paranoid, calculating. Aetius is too powerful, too popular. too connected to the barbarian federates who now make up most of Roman military strength. Valentinian sees a man who could take the throne whenever he wants. So, on September 21st, 454 AD, during an audience about financial matters, Valentinian strikes. He draws his sword, personally, and he kills Aetius, sword falling, blood on marble. The emperor's advisors stare in disbelief. One of them will later say, "You have just cut off your right hand with your left. The man who saved Gaul, the man who built the coalition, the last shield Rome had. Murdered by his own emperor. Stay with me, because it gets worse." March 455 AD, Rome. 6 months later, 2 of Aetius's former bodyguards, barbarians loyal to their dead commander, find Valentinian on the Campus Martius. They kill him, emperor falling, assassins walking away. No trial, no conspiracy, just revenge. And now there is no emperor, no general, no plan. Western Empire with a void, at its center. What follows is the spiral. In the next 20 years, the Western Empire will see 9 emperors, most murdered, some lasting months. The throne becomes a death sentence. The Vandals sack Rome in 455. The Federates realize no one can stop them. Warlords carve out territories. The army, what's left of it, follows whoever pays. By 476, when the last emperor is deposed, it's almost a formality. The empire has been dead for years. It just hadn't stopped moving. The thesis completes. Here's what Attila actually did. He didn't conquer Rome. He didn't have to. He forced Rome into a posture where survival meant dependency. Gold bought peace. Federates bought military strength. Both came with a price Rome couldn't afford. Scale balancing gold against soldiers, then tipping. And when the external pressure finally eased, when Attila died and the Huns collapsed, the internal rot was already terminal. The empire that survived Attila couldn't survive its own paranoia. Dependence on barbarian generals created fear. Fear created assassination. Assassination created instability. Instability created more dependence. The cycle fed itself until there was nothing left to save. Closing. What actually ended map of the Western Empire, 476 AD, empty. When people ask, why did Rome fall? They want a simple answer. Barbarians, corruption, lead pipes, economic decline. But empires don't die from one wound. They die from bleeding out slowly, cutting themselves open, and forgetting how to heal. List appearing and dissolving. Border defense became gold payments. Unified command became warlord coalitions. Imperial stability became assassination cycles. Attila exposed every crack. Rome poured itself into them. By the time he died, the West had already learned to survive without being an empire. The Federates knew they didn't need Roman permission. The generals knew the emperor would kill them if they succeeded. The treasury knew it would always owe more than it had. The system was over. The city remained. The idea persisted. But the thing that made Rome Rome, the ability to project power, command loyalty, and outlast its enemies, that was gone. Final image. A single Roman eagle standard lying in mud. This is how the end began. Not with a conqueror at the gates, with a frontier turned into a bill, an empire too broke to fight, too dependent to stand alone, too paranoid to stop killing its own. 6,000 pounds of gold. That was the price in 447. 29 years later, there was nothing left to buy.